Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Engine Room podcast. My name is Frederik, and I am your host. Today, we'll be exploring a little bit about the different modes of marketing that you need to be doing when you're looking at startup marketing and when you're looking at scale-up marketing. And I've brought somebody in who has a very unique vantage point on that because he's got a foot in each camp. Adam Holmgren, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, good to be here, Frederik. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share this very unique vantage point with us. But if people don't know who you are, which is a shame because you share so much great shit on LinkedIn, can you just give the short intro to who you are?
Yeah, of course. I'm a Swede, obviously living in Sweden. I've been working for the last 10 years in B2B marketing, and most often in the scale-up world. But as you said, recently I've also been able to, start my own company. So very much more the scrappy, the startup scene. And as we are going to talk about today, that it looks very different in how you kind of treat marketing. And I think that's very, very interesting. I think many companies should learn from the startup scene, to be honest.
Yeah, and we'll get into all of that. But I think just setting the context a little bit. So you have your own company, Fibbler, and then you're working as a director of demand gen in Rillion. Can you maybe just try and draw the line? So how does Rillion look like and what does Fibbler look like?
Yeah, exactly. So I have a full-time job where I work at a company called Rillion that do API automation and so on, targeting mainly CFOs. It's actually my first time targeting a persona like the CFO. And it's very different compared to selling to marketeers and salespeople, right? But it's all they're way more logical, doesn't take buzzwords out the door and all of that. So I do that as a full-time job, and then as a side gig, maybe more than a side gig at this point, but at least during the nights and the weekends, I'm running Fibbler, my own startup, with a friend, and we are obviously targeting marketers. So it's very different in what kind of marketing works as well. And I would say at Rillion, we are about 200 people or something like that. But in the marketing team that is led by my CMO, Frida, we are about 11 or 12 now at this point, I think. And I kind of lead the demand gen team where we are 3 people now.
Cool. So what are some of the main differences in terms of how marketing is viewed because you obviously, so you're 3 people in Fibbler right now, right?
Yeah. 2 people. 2 people.
2 people. Okay. So obviously you have a lot to say on how marketing is viewed over there, but maybe from an objective point of view, what are some of the ways that marketing is viewed more in a scale up such as Rillion, and then how it's viewed in a startup such as yours?
Yeah. I mean, I think in scale ups you're typically around 100 to maybe 300 people, right? So there's a lot of politics that goes into that, and kind of how the executive team and the leadership team view marketing overall, right? But in my experience, at least, most exec teams at that stage has some sort of board that they answer to, right? Most are either VC backed or PE backed or whatever it is. And in that scenario, marketing almost always becomes sort of like a short-term revenue driver. And I would say that has been true for all companies I've worked for. Partly we can work on brand building and so on, right? But at the end of the day, if we're not hitting the bottom funnel targets, the MQLs, the deals, the pipeline, and the revenue, we will be in big trouble. So I think that is both unfortunate a little bit for marketing because it's very hard to do great marketing in a way, and we can come into that with having these kind of targets always. And I think it also, as both you and I know, great marketing also depends so much on how good is your product market fit right now. Like, where are you in the market? Can we even market? Can we, in the marketing side, even pull this off, right? And it's not always the case, I'd argue. But I definitely think the biggest difference then when working for my own startup is that I only answer to myself, right? My co-founder is a technical co-founder. He doesn't give a shit of what I do. So it's
It must be
very,
nice.
yeah, exactly. It's very nice actually. He think it's good though. But I think I've been very fortunate to be able to then, okay, I'm gonna go all in on kind of brand building. I'm not gonna do no Google ads, no kind of lead forms on LinkedIn, nothing like that, because I don't have to, because I believe so much in this, and I can finally kind of prove that. And I think we have, shown that by building brand, bottom funnel numbers are correlating very well with that. But I think businesses in a scale up are way too afraid to do that. I think and VCs, etc., have their models. They have their spreadsheets of how things are supposed to be done.
Yeah. That's actually interesting because I would have expected it from an outside perspective. I know because I'm in the weeds agency. We are working with scale ups as well, but I would have expected it to be the other way around, right? So when you're in a startup, money are tight, and then you would have to prove the bottom funnel metrics much faster
Yeah.
than you would obviously you got some funding and they have to be deployed in the right way. So obviously there's that, and you're getting the pressure from all the way up, board investors, so on and so forth. But I would have expected that, once you're in a little bit more of a mature company and once you're a little bit more settled, you would actually get more of the, what can you say, leeway or freedom to try and build the brand and not just focus on bottom funnel metrics.
No, and I actually think that, depending on if you're a startup that are also, funded and you have a board and so on, at that point, maybe, yeah. But I think actually the pressure for revenue and pipeline, it increases as you grow, I'd say. Like, the more you grow, the bigger targets you get, and the more you're focusing on the bottom funnel metrics. And I'd say, like, the most successful things I've been able to do on the scale up scene are more like finding ways to do some brand building while still keeping the lights on for the rest, right? So maybe not shifting over completely, because that will never fly and you will not be trusted in the company, I'd say. So more like, okay, we're doing these activities to kind of capture demand more, and then we can run a couple of activities to kind of show the importance of how to build brand, and that's kind of what we're doing at Rillion, I'd say. We do run all of these, capture lead activities, but we have also, focused a lot on a couple of bigger brand initiatives that we can hopefully kind of at least correlate to revenue down the line, and then we can do more of those. I think that's important in a scale-up scene, to slowly but surely shift away, prove your point, and, get trust within the company, because this kind of internal marketing for yourself, it's so important. And I think I during my career have kind of forgotten that a little bit, but It's so important that you market yourself internally as well, at least when the company is like 200 people plus. It's important.
Yeah, I believe that. All right, so we're shifting gears a little bit now. Let's try and go into, so what does marketing look like in an established company, right? So we'll be talking about like priorities, goals, reporting, maybe processes, so all that stuff. So if you can start to, we've gotten into it a little bit and it was very focused on like bottom funnel metrics, but what are some of the more important priorities when you're working in a scale up, such as Rillion, in terms of, marketing?
Yeah. No, but we have, I'd say very clear quarterly pipeline targets, very clear quarterly revenue targets, and that is the North Star, right? These are the ones we have to hit in order to grow as a company. And then it kind of depends on what route you take. When you are a scale up, typically you are showing up in a very multi-channel approach. You have a lot of channels you're part of. It's hard to say what channel drove what for sure, right? You can have certain attribution tools to try and do that a little bit, but it's not necessarily completely correct, right? You can maybe more see trends. So I think that's the biggest hurdle. Like, we are trying to be in all of these places, and we are trying to affect the pipeline and the bottom line, and we're trying to work very closely with sales. I think that's key. And what we've done at Rillion, at least, I'd say I've done at all scale-up companies I've worked for, is focusing on some sort of ABM or ABX approach, right? Because I think that's the easiest way to align with sales on the same goals, on the same accounts. And at Rillion, it kind of works like we have these, we have kind of our ICP pools that are then delivered out to the sales team. They own certain accounts, and we also utilize the same accounts in our advertising, and they are doing the same in their outbound. So it's a very like both kind of approach. And in that project that we're running, then we're not looking at results in terms of, okay, marketing drove this, sales drove this. Here we're looking at it on a more aggregate scale, which I like. And we can finally get to that point maybe when it works. So I'd say 60% of our time or something like that goes into this kind of ABM, maybe X framework. We have bi-weekly meetings, sales and marketing together, where we sit down and see, okay, how many companies have we created these kind of ABM signals for? How many have you called, and how have that worked? Have we gotten any feedback? Things like that, I'd say.
That's super interesting, because a lot of our listeners and a lot of our clients, they're also in like, how do we do ABM the right way? And I was just noting this down. So explain how you align with sales, and you just got into that a little bit. So there's bi-weekly meetings, you have the same target accounts, and then you got into something like signals, right? Which I think a lot of people are interested in, and I think there's a lot of hype around it right now. So
exactly.
Can you maybe try to one thing in terms of your organization? You have a SDR team, I guess. Are they in sales or marketing?
They are in sales.
They're in sales. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can outline the process a little bit more, and I'm a very big proponent for keeping it simple, right? It's so easy to make it way too complex. But the first thing that I believe a lot in is to have your kind of, you have to create your ICP list together with sales, right? So you kind of align on what to target. But I also recommend making them as broad as possible. This statistic that flies around LinkedIn all the time, that only 5% are in market and so on, and 95% are not, I think is very important here, because we want to kind of target all of the people that are not in market as well, because if we only target the people who are in market, it's a very limited fracture, right? So that's kind of step number one, to kind of align on these bigger account lists. And then kind of handing them out to sales in our HubSpot instance, so we can make sure that they own them. And then they will, of course, have certain, calling lists and so on, dependent on those. But what we do, at least, is that we run ads, obviously, towards all of these. That's our entire playbook on LinkedIn ads. So we run it towards this ABX list. And from that, we have a couple of signals that we utilize in HubSpot. We're trying to keep it very simple. So we have obviously ad engagement to data. So people that are engaging with our ads is one. We are also using website data. So if people are visiting pages on our site, that will also be scored. And then finally, we're using G2 data, because we're a lot in the US. So G2 has been very valuable for us. And those three are kind of aggregated into an account score. And when that I don't remember the necessary threshold now, but when it reaches that threshold, it's sent out as a task to the BDR team to reach out to them. So it's kind of a very flowing process like that.
All right. So I think this is actually a very interesting, because I think the way I've been seeing companies trying to use signals, it's been very isolated, right? So now we got 3 pings, or like 3 hits on our pricing page in the last 30 days, and like that's just a signal, right? But what I'm hearing you saying is that you're aggregating a little bit more. So like, that's not a standalone signal. That might be the case, and that might, paint part of a bigger picture, but they also have to have ad engagements or, G2 data and all that stuff. So it's not just isolated.
No, exactly. Everything is aggregated together, and I'd say for us, like especially in the US, that's a big priority market for us. G2 is obviously a signal that gives the account score a lot of points, because then someone is actually, or most likely, researching something in our category, right? That's pretty. If someone is, engaging with our ad, it's not necessarily high intent, right? It might be slight interest, and maybe website visit doesn't necessarily need to mean intent either. They might just want to see what we're all about. So I definitely think that we need to also take it for what it is, in a way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and ad engagement, the data you get from LinkedIn is also a little arbitrary, right? What is an engagement?
So it is kind of what it is in a way. I think it's better to have something than to have nothing, but I also think you maybe shouldn't trust it fully in that sense.
Right, makes a lot of sense. All right. That's really cool, and that was really nice insights. If we're moving on a little bit, so in terms of like reporting in a scale up, how does that look for you?
Yeah, and it's obviously a lot more than in a in a startup, right? But we do it on a monthly scale to the company, so to say, so to the exec team and to the board. So we both report like marketing's metrics as a whole, so how are the MQLs, the deals, the pipeline, the revenue, but also reporting on more of the paid channels, right, where we are putting out most of our money in a sense. So those two are kind of separate, and then we report them on a monthly and a quarterly basis to kind of see where we are trending. And I'd say the paid performance stuff is that's more leading indicators, I'd say, right? So we can see that we're spending this money, we're getting these initial indicators. And in the other like reporting deck, then it's more firm numbers like MQL deals, pipeline and revenue. Yeah.
And I know you're a big proponent of getting your hands dirty as well. So even though you sit as a director, I know you have your hands in the platform as well. So what are some of the like in platform metrics? What are some of the most important leading indicators that you're looking at?
No, but for me and for us, I'd say that, some sort of engagement metric is really key, especially for me, since I haven't really worked towards a finance persona before. And I think just using CTR is very good in terms of engagement, because we kind of know what the average CTR is on LinkedIn, so we can kind of gauge if it's better than the average or not. So that we use that a lot with all our different campaigns, I'd say, just to see if we're getting closer to a 1% CTR, we typically deem the campaign as pretty engaging towards our audience. So something is working here, and then we try to work off of that, I'd say. Trying to keep it very simple like that, having one engagement metric we are looking at. And I mean, the average for something on LinkedIn is 0.4%, right? So if we're above that, we're at least better than average. If we're closer to 1%, I'd say we have a really good campaign going.
Yeah. I think this is super important also to so what I'm hearing you saying is that CTR is not a success metric for you. It's not like, well, we gotten our campaigns to a 1% click-through rate, and now this is a successful campaign. This is just an indication or a proxy metric to you to say, like, here is something that the audience found engaging. Can we explore that more, right?
Exactly. And I typically think it correlates a lot, but that's later on, right? With bottom funnel metrics, it's very hard to prove. Like the hypothesis, at least, is that it correlates a lot with if we can create very engaging campaigns while talking about our narrative and our product, then we will see metrics improve bottom funnel as well. It's just we have to trust it as well. If we need to see those numbers go up instantly, it's not the right play in a way. Then we would most likely run product ads with a lead form, and they would never get that kind of engagement. So it's, yeah.
I understand. All right. So if we move on to a little bit, so what are some of the biggest maybe benefits and challenges of doing marketing in a scale up?
Yeah, I mean, I think compared to running it on your own in a startup, in a scale up, you have more resources, right? That's always, you have more money to spend, you have more resources in terms of, creating good content and creatives and all of that. So that is obviously really nice. So we have more of I'd say a model of how we create campaigns and how we create creatives, and it's not you just sitting with. But the drawback of that, on the other hand, is also that there are a lot of people that wants to have an opinion on everything that goes out, right? And it's not necessarily a good thing. I've at least come to learn that, like, take design as an example. Okay, so we want this creative here to follow our brand and to be very, and then we try one that looks more like a child made it, and it typically would perform better, right? So it's very, you take one with the other. How important is it to always stick with our brand 100%, and how important it is? So it's a lot of those discussions, right, internally.
I think I remember Dave Gerhardt. He wrote, "Marketing by committee is where great campaigns go to die," or something like that.
Exactly, right? And I'd say all scale-up companies plus, like when they grow, it turns into marketing by committee in some regards, at least. Sometimes it's only within the marketing team, but quite often it's also, the exec team has an idea, or they have some thoughts on the latest campaign, or other employees. Because I think that's both the blessing and the curse with marketing, right? Because everyone thinks they can do marketing in a way, which is they can have ideas, but it's not really the same thing.
No. If you have to pick another of the biggest challenges in a scale up, what would that be? And then we're moving on to what's marketing like in a startup.
Yeah, but I think a challenge in a scale up is to be able to. I talked about it a bit before, the internal marketing side. So everything we want to do in terms of external marketing as well, we kind of, to be able to do these crazy ideas that we believe will have a huge impact, we have to have trust to do those inside the company first. So it's very, if I would put out something, a crazy campaign, making fun of CFOs as an example, without having trust internally, it would not land well. So I think, and we often focus so much, especially in the beginning of when we enter a company, like we want this small, find an instant win here. But maybe the win in the beginning is to get to know people and to, make sure people start to respect you and trust you internally. And that is something I've, as of late, started to not focus a lot on, but at least have in my mind when I do things. Like how would the company feel about this, as an example?
Yeah, I've worked with a few that wasn't scale ups, like that was big enterprise companies, just a few, and you wouldn't believe how important it was to the marketing team that their own company was included in the targeting, because it was very important that the rest of the company saw the ads that we were running.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean it's
All right.
very funny, right? It's like taking your we use Slack in your Slack channel, right? You typically always see the sales teams post when they win a deal, right? And it's celebrated, and it's like marketing rarely has that. Like it's very rare that marketing gets celebrated for a campaign in the same sense, since we don't know if it drove pipeline or revenue. So I think, and that goes back to the internal marketing side, right?
All right, Adam. So let's talk about what's it like. Now we've gone through the the scale up, and now what is it like in a startup? So what are your top priorities in terms of marketing when you're marketing for Fibbler?
Yeah, and I mean it's also different. We're running as a bootstrap business, so as you said before, at least in the beginning, we were very strapped on cash, right? So we had to really prioritize. I think one thing that made us grow really fast in the beginning was obviously my network. I've been writing on LinkedIn for maybe 3-4 years before starting Fibbler, and I think that was really key. And I'm not honestly sure we would have even taken off without that. So I think that's a good tip to anyone that wants to start anything at some point. Like, invest in your personal brand before that, and it's kind of back to the not internal marketing this time, but kind of brand marketing yourself in a way. And I feel like when I started writing about those things and what we kind of were launching, people already had some trust in me. So it was not like I cold pitched them. I was more talking, okay, I've had this issue, now I'm creating something for it, try it if you want. And that, I feel, is so powerful to have that initial trust. It's crazy, actually. And I mean, after a while, when we started earning money, I was very quick with launching ads on LinkedIn, because I think they are so damn good if you do it well. And my own network was mostly in Europe, I'd say, or at least 80% in the beginning. So I knew that if we wanted to grow in the US, where we have to grow there, we are targeting SMBs, and there's so many more SMB companies in tech in the US. And I knew that we had to be able to get outside of my network, and LinkedIn ads is probably the best place to do that. So what we started with early on was more, okay, we did my organic things, and then we did these thought leader ads that we can get into more on LinkedIn. And that was, 99% of what we did for a long time.
It's interesting because I think you would have advised against that strategy, right? for the general like bootstrap startup. You have your personal brand and like the thought leadership that you've been building and all that. Like obviously that was a big deal, but you typically advise against running ads to something that maybe haven't really gotten product market fit, right? You even said
Yeah.
that earlier. And a bootstrap company that's been how long have you been around? Like this year only,
Yeah,
right?
40 months or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So what are your thoughts on launching ads this early?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good point. And I mean, I think one part of it is that we ran this as a side thing. If we can't spend more than we're getting in, so even if we get down to zero, it doesn't really matter. We don't necessarily need the money right now. We're both working full time. So I think it was one part of it was kind of to prove what we are doing, if people are engaging with that kind of narrative even. I think LinkedIn ads is very strong there if you have the money to like, okay, we can put out our narrative to all of these people that is in my proposed ICP at least. Does it work or does it not? And it proved very early to work. And then we have kind of continuously, I think we've been spending a lot more on that than normal. I think we've been at like always been at about 50-60% of our MRR, continuously
All right.
spending that, and we're continuing to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that has been part of the success also, because we have believed so much in that. Okay, people are engaging with this, that will lead to more MRR down the line. So we have just, and we do that even to this day. We are spending about 50% of our MRR, not only on LinkedIn ads, but it's a big portion of it, and then on content and on stuff like that. And I
All right.
don't
So
think a lot of bootstrap startups do that.
no, I don't think so either. I don't think a lot of companies spend half their MRR on marketing in general.
No.
But okay, so what I'm hearing you saying is that it wasn't so much a like obviously you wanted to get some pipeline and revenue out of it, but it was much more like a way to try and validate the maybe first of all the ICP, but also the problem you're solving. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Okay.
I had talked to a lot of people before, obviously, but it's still people I kind of knew. So it's hard to say if that was completely true, like if they completely agreed with the problem. So I feel like we had to do that in a way, get outside of my network, get into the States. Is this a real issue, and is this a good solution for it? And I think that was a good way to do it, honestly. As I said before, we ran mostly thought leader ads and more brand related assets in that sense, and we didn't push people to create a free trial or anything. But as we have increased our spend, the signups have kind of increased in the same regard. So it's easier when you're in a startup, right? That's our main channel. It's very easy to say, okay, we're increasing spend here, bottom funnel metrics are also increasing, something is working. It's way harder,
sure.
as we talked about before, in a scale up when you have like 10 channels. Oh, we increase spend here, and then it increases, but we don't know if that was why. It's very.
Yeah.
So that is something I like with B, and I honestly think a lot of scale up should learn from that also sometimes too. Maybe they should scale down and start running only one channel for a while and then scale to the next. Because I think a lot of scale ups are they believe that they have to be everywhere in terms of being so, and I don't believe that. I mean, you have to be where your ICP is, but that's about it.
All right. But I think that's an interesting way to go about it, and obviously it also helps when you're your own ICP, right? Then you have been feeling
very
the
much
problems,
helps.
right?
Yeah.
All right. If we go a little bit down again, like, so what are the goals that you have when running marketing for Fibbler, and maybe the way you think about spending money and the results you want to see? Is that different from the way you look at it in Rillion?
100%. I mean, we're running a PLG business as well, so most of it is self-serve in a way. I think I've had maybe 5 demos in total since starting.
All right.
Partly it's because we didn't have the time. I mean, we did this on the side of full-time jobs, so we just had to, okay, this is self-serve, we can't do anything. But I'm quite happy about that now, because then you have to make your product dead stupid simple to use in a way for people to be able to upgrade on their own. And so we have had to work a lot with that, obviously. But I'd say yes, early on, we focused a lot on brand. So looking at branded search has been, the most critical thing for us. And now, as of late, we're doing it, and I put out a few posts of it, doing it in relation to some of the competitors in the same space, right? To see if I kind of used that tool that was created by Liam Moroney.
Yeah.
A good person talking a lot about brand, which is really
Yeah.
cool, because then you can kind of see relative to your competitors, how much is your brand growing and how much of the kind of brand share are you taking versus them on different markets. And I'm so into that right now. So like, how can we grow our brand compared to these VC giants, right? So that has been definitely the main metric, and it also helped that Fibbler is kind of it's a unique name in that sense. So people doesn't just search for that in a way. So it kind of helps. Some names are not as good in terms of looking at branded search, right? So that has been very helpful.
All right. You also managed to be quite distinct in the market, right? With your entire visual appearance, right? That I'm sure that also
Yeah,
played
exactly.
a huge
And I
role
mean,
in the memorability.
I would say that, and then we kind of took a market, a specific niche of the market that no one really cared about. I mean, the SMB, a few years ago, everyone went up market, right? Because everyone wanted higher ACVs, and that kind of opens up. I think it has opened up that for a lot of industries, like the SMBs that just want something cheaper. They want to do a specific thing. They might not want to pay for all of those things. And that was kind of the gap that we took. That has also helped in building the brand, because there are so many SMB companies that are underserved in a lot of industries. I mean, I think LinkedIn has been doing the same thing. They have been focusing on their enterprise customers, because they are spending most on ads, sure, on an individual scale, but the SMB companies, it's a massive volume, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we see it across a lot of our customers as well, right? Everybody wants to, also because ABM has become the ish, right? It's become the word in the last couple of days. So like everybody has to do ABM. And I don't think anybody really is aware of, first of all, how to do it, and second of all, how much that actually goes into running a proper ABM motion.
No, exactly.
All right, Adam. So benefits and challenges of running marketing in a startup.
I mean, the benefits is for sure that, especially since I'm a marketeer as well, I think it's very good to be a founder and a marketeer. I'd say that helps a lot early on, because I mean, you know what you want, you know how to. I think companies that will struggle are companies that don't have that distribution and marketing side to a company. I mean, you can have all the technical and product people you want, but if you're not able to get that out to the right people, it doesn't matter. But I think the big benefit is that I have been able to use it kind of as my playground and learning ground. I don't think I've learned so much as in these past 12 months. It has been insane, because I only have myself to kind of answer to, and that has been huge. So I honestly recommend everyone, not necessarily starting a company, but starting something on the side. It could be anything, like it could be a newsletter, it could be a group community, whatever. You learn so much by having to do all of these things that you don't do on your regular job. Like in a scale up, typically you have more of the specialist, right? But at some point when you have to be the generalist, you can learn a lot about yourself and what you're good at, and so on. So that is for sure the biggest benefit. I've kind of fallen back in love with marketing a lot, I'd say.
That's amazing.
Which is really fun. And the drawback obviously is that you only have your own input in a way, and it's easy to get very subjective, and I know this will work because I'm in my ICP, but it's not necessarily true, right? And I also think that you often take your customers' feedback way too seriously. Like, oh, they need this feature now. Oh, we have to build it, and then it's built and no one uses the shit. So it's like it's very easy in the beginning to take feedback too harsh in a way.
Yeah, I think if one of the things that I also, so I've been having my own business for a while, and I think one of the things that was always I probably like both, right? A challenge and a benefit was kind of spending my own money, right? So it has to work. I don't just get, 250,000 a month that I can just splurge on whatever I want. No. I have to make these 10, 20K work really hard, right? And that also, I think that translated into the way, for me at least, that translated into the way that I do marketing for the clients, right? Because whenever somebody comes with a big budget, I'm like, let's not spend it all, because we have to make sure that we're spending it in the right way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see the same in bigger companies, right? Some people are just, okay, I've seen this initiative. It's only $10,000. Should we do it? And it's like $10,000. Like if that was your own money, you wouldn't say it that lightly. So I think that's such a great. Like everyone would learn a lot from spending some of your own money on something that they have to make it work and do it well.
Yeah. All right. So you touched upon it a little bit, but what do you think is something that startup marketing can learn from scale-up marketing and vice versa?
Yeah, but I obviously think that scale-ups are better in terms of processes, like in terms of actually documenting things that works and doesn't work. I mean, I'm a very unstructured person, I would say, and that's both my blessing and my curse. In a startup, I don't document things. I just run with it, and it's kind of intuition in many ways. In a scale-up, I have to do that because we have to kind of get a list down of what works, and kind of we experiment with things over time. We run these, sprints, so we run 3-week sprints at a time, and then we kind of look into the results and so on, and kind of document how it went and go with the next. So I think my startup marketing would benefit from including some of that. Maybe not as processy, but at least documentation of what works and what doesn't. Because after a while, you've done so much, you don't even remember what worked at that point. And then vice versa, I'd say like the startup marketing is kind of the learning that scale-ups can have is to kind of go back to basics a little bit. You focus on one channel and do it really, really damn well. I mean, if you're a scale-up, you typically won't cap LinkedIn ads, right? If that's a channel you want to focus on. Maybe you don't have to do Google ads. Maybe you don't have to do SEO or anything right now. You can do this really well, and when it works, and then you can scale further. I think scale-ups are too hungry to be everywhere in a sense.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that's a great point. There's also a matter of the way I see it. So I spent the first part of my career in startups, and now I'm a little bit more into scale-ups. I think there's also some, risk willingness, if you want to call it that you have to have in a startup that you don't get to have in a scale-up. Like the risk of being like trying something that's very out there. And my thing is always, there's very few things that are that permanent. We can just pause the ad, and then it got 1,000 impressions, and then 1,000 people saw it, right?
And
they
no
won't
one will
remember
remember
tomorrow
it
anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the bigger takeaways for me as well. All right, Adam, we are coming up on time here. Thank you so much for taking all the time to talk so openly about everything.
Thank you.
Where can people find you? And we also need the plug for Fibbler, right? What is it that you do, and where can we get a free trial maybe from that?
Yeah, but I often try to post every weekday on LinkedIn at least. It's around LinkedIn ads, ABM, building a startup now, so it's all of that. Trying to share as much transparently as possible, both the highs and the lows. And I mean, Fibbler was started from my own problem, more or less. I've been doing LinkedIn ads specifically for a long time, and kind of realized that it's very hard to tie that back to CRM results, right? Because most people don't click on ads. So that was kind of what we built, a way to kind of match ads data from LinkedIn with your CRM, so HubSpot or Salesforce, and that get these kind of influenced attribution metrics. Not necessarily to prove credit, but at least to use as I talked about before, leading indicators. Are we seeing that we are influencing more and more companies? Then we're doing something right. And you can find that on fibbler.co, of course. We couldn't afford .com domain.
All right. We'll make sure to put it in the show notes. And then we'll also get more of you, right? Because you're joining Sparkforce for Growthoria in October.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's really cool.
Wonderful, Adam. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Have a great day, man.